She sat frozen at the dinner table, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and whispers of betrayal. The Italian Mafia boss leaned close, his voice colder than the wine in his glass. "Don't look at him again," he said, and every soul in that fancy restaurant felt the temperature drop. What she didn't know was that this night would change her life forever. Sparkles, if you love stories filled with betrayal, power, and impossible choices, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next will leave you breathless. The chandelier above shimmered like frozen stars, scattering gold light across the marble floor of La Luna Nera, Rome's most exclusive restaurant. The air smelled of wine and quiet fear, the kind that came when powerful men gathered in silk suits and whispered about loyalty. Isabella Moretti adjusted the crimson satin of her dress, trying to steady her hands. Tonight wasn't just dinner, it was survival. She had walked into the lion's den dressed like a queen, but her heart beat like a prisoner's drum. Across the table sat Don Lorenzo De Luca, the Italian Mafia boss whose name made even police captains flinch. His silver hair was slicked back, his dark eyes calculating and cold. But when they met hers, there was something else, something softer, dangerous in its own way. He'd built empires on blood and loyalty, yet somehow, she had found her way into his guarded world. Isabella wasn't born into his power, she was a violinist who had played one night at a charity gala. He'd noticed her, not just her beauty, but the way her music spoke pain, longing, and defiance all at once. And now, a year later, she sat at his table, wearing diamonds that weren't hers and carrying secrets that could kill them both. The sound of forks and soft Italian laughter filled the room. But Isabella's focus was elsewhere, on the man sitting 3 tables away, pretending to read the menu. Marco. Her childhood friend, now an undercover agent. He had been her protector once, before she fell into Lorenzo's orbit. She had promised herself she'd never see him again, but tonight, fate, or maybe guilt, had placed him in the same room as the man who owned her soul. Lorenzo leaned in slightly, his tone low. "You're quiet tonight, Mia Bella. What are you thinking about?" She smiled faintly, careful not to let her trembling lips betray her. "Just, the music. They're playing my piece." He glanced toward the small band in the corner, then back at her. "Ah, yes. The one you wrote for me." His voice was velvet and steel. "It sounds like sorrow." Isabella's throat tightened. "It's supposed to." For a moment, their eyes locked, a queen and a king trapped in a kingdom built on secrets. But then, something changed. Lorenzo's gaze shifted past her shoulder. His jaw hardened. He placed his wine glass down slowly, his expression darkening like a storm rolling in from the sea. "Who is that man?" he asked. Isabella froze. "Which one?" "The one looking at you," he said sharply. "The one who pretends not to." Her pulse spiked. She turned slightly, only to see Marco's eyes flicker up, then down, his act collapsing in that one moment of human recognition. It was enough. Lorenzo's hand closed over hers like iron. "Don't look at him again," he said softly, his voice so low only she could hear. "Not once more." The word struck like a gunshot muffled under silk. Around them, laughter continued, champagne poured, and yet the air turned heavy, thick with the promise of something terrible. Isabella swallowed hard. "He's just a stranger," she lied. Lorenzo's thumb traced her wrist, slow, deliberate. "No stranger looks at my woman like that." Inside, Isabella's heart broke in silence. She wanted to scream, "I'm not yours," but she knew what those words would cost. Lorenzo De Luca was not a man you defied, he was a man whose enemies vanished between sunset and dawn. So she smiled, the perfect lover, the perfect lie. The waiter came with the next course, black truffle risotto, and Isabella pretended to eat. Across the room, Marco gave her a subtle signal, a folded napkin placed on the corner of his table. A message. A warning. She knew what it meant. They know. Leave now. Her breath caught. Had the police discovered her connection to Lorenzo? Or worse, had Lorenzo discovered her connection to them? When Lorenzo stood, raising his glass for a toast, every man in the room followed. To loyalty, he said, his voice carrying authority that could silence gunfire. To those who stand beside us, and to those who fall away. Glasses clinked. The crystal chimed like fragile hearts breaking. Isabella lifted her glass too, her hand trembling just enough to spill a drop of red wine on her gown. It looked like blood. After the toast, Lorenzo turned to her again, his tone deceptively calm. "You will stay with me tonight at the villa," he said. "There are matters we must discuss. Alone." She nodded, masking the panic clawing inside her chest. If she refused, he'd suspect more. If she went, she might never leave. Her mind raced. She had one chance, to get that message from Marco before the night ended. When Lorenzo stepped away to greet another guest, Isabella's body moved before her fear could stop it. She rose, walked to the restroom corridor, and brushed past Marco's table. Their eyes met for a single second, one filled with every memory they'd ever shared. He slipped the napkin into her hand with the grace of a magician. She entered the restroom, locked the door, and unfolded it. The note was short, scrawled in haste. "He knows. Get out. Don't trust anyone." Her reflection stared back at her in the mirror, eyes wide, face pale, a diamond necklace that suddenly felt like a noose. She took a deep breath. If Lorenzo already knew, running now might only confirm it. She had to play the part until she could find a way to escape. When she returned, Lorenzo was waiting by the table. His expression was unreadable. He took her hand, his grip firm, his smile too calm. "Shall we?" Outside, a black Maserati waited. The night smelled of rain and danger. As they drove toward his villa on the hill, Isabella watched the city lights blur into streaks of gold and white. Every turn of the car felt like a countdown. She could feel Marco's eyes on her memory, his voice echoing, "Get out." At the villa, guards in suits opened the doors. The silence of the marble hall was unbearable. Lorenzo poured 2 glasses of red wine, his movements slow, almost ritualistic. Then he looked at her, not with anger, but with something colder. "You lied to me," he said softly. Isabella's heart stopped. "About what?" He took a sip of wine, eyes fixed on hers. "Do you really want to play that game, amore mio? I saw the fear in your eyes. I saw him, the man you used to know." She said nothing. The silence was her only weapon. Finally, Lorenzo set the glass down, his tone quiet but sharp. "Tomorrow, I'll find out who he is. And if I find out you were part of it," he smiled faintly, like a man remembering a love song. "Then the next piece of music you play will be at your own funeral." Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "And if you're wrong," she whispered. "Then I'll apologize, with roses," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But I'm never wrong." As he walked away, the door closed behind him with a soft click that felt like the sealing of her fate. Isabella sank to the floor, clutching the napkin message in her trembling hands. The moonlight cut through the window, silver against her skin, as she whispered to herself, "Don't look at him again." And in that moment, she knew that the man she loved might be the one who would destroy her. Rain poured over the villa as Isabella stood by the window, heart racing. Lorenzo's men searched for Marco, every shadow screamed danger. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed. Marco burst in, bleeding, whispering, "Run." Lorenzo appeared behind him, gun raised. Isabella stepped between them, tears mixing with rain. "He's not your enemy, I am." For the first time, Lorenzo's eyes softened, before he lowered the gun. "Go." She fled into the storm, never looking back. Years later, playing her violin in Paris, the memory haunted her, his final words still echoing, "Don't look at him again." Sparkles like, share and subscribe for more emotional stories.